I live in Southeast Texas, oil country. I wear a peepee, personal protective equipment, uniform featuring my company's name and logo, along with an ID badge bearing the same. I also reside in a really nice suburb. While visiting our local Walmart, I was in the meat section looking for ground lamb when an older lady asked me which aisle the toilet paper was in. I shop at Walmart a lot, so I told her aisle 17. She thanked me, and we parted ways. Not 2 seconds later, I heard someone say, "Excuse me," very rudely. Let's call this rude lady Karen, and myself Trevor. Karen shrieked, "I tried getting your attention before that other woman. Why didn't you help me first?" I responded, "Ma'am, I didn't hear or see you, and I don't work here." That other lady asked for my help, politely I might add, so I helped her since I knew where the item she was looking for was located. Karen retorted, "Well, since you helped her and know where things are, you must help me." I laughed and said, "Listen, C-word, I don't have to do anything, especially for an entitled Karen like yourself." Karen then became racist. "I forgot to mention, I'm Mexican in Southeast Texas." She belted out. Well, you know, a lazy Mexican. My blood boiling, I retorted, "Listen here, you racist C-word. Get out of my face. Screw you and screw your family." Karen's face turned bright red, and she proceeded to slap me twice. Then an employee walked over asking, "Excuse me, is something wrong?" Before I could say anything, Karen went off on a rant. I asked this lazy Mexican for help, and as usual, he's too lazy to help me. These foreigners need to go back to where they're from. The Walmart employee was Mexican as well. Karen continued, then after I asked for his help, Trevor slapped me and called me a C-word and a B-word, unaware that Walmart employees had seen the entire altercation. Karen yelled, "I want to see the manager and have Trevor arrested." Walmart employees complied and called for his manager over the loudspeaker. Manager arrived asking what was going on. Karen repeated her lies. Manager asked me what happened, then Walmart employees. Manager asked Karen, "Do you want me to call the police?" Karen replied, "Yes." Side note, if Walmart employees hadn't come over when he did, I was ready to smack Karen. The police arrived, and Karen went on about how I was going to jail and getting deported. The police questioned all parties involved and asked if there was security footage. Manager replied, "Absolutely." Karen started shaking, knowing the truth. The police watched the video and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said with absolute satisfaction, "Yes, I want to press charges against this racist C-word." I forgot to mention the police and manager were Mexican, and they all started laughing. The police then put the witch in cuffs and took her to jail. I had to go to court a few months later, and Karen received 14 months, 2 years probation, and 1 year of community service. Karen was lucky she wasn't charged with a hate crime. Justice was served. In court, I made a statement to Karen. I am half Mexican, half white. I was born in Ohio, and my parents were born in Ohio. Regardless of my Mexican descent and being born in America, your racism is not tolerated anymore. I hope you get the justice you deserve in jail. Karen had the nerve to respond by calling me a spice, but I had the last laugh when the deputy who took her away was, guess what, Mexican. I'm guessing Karen didn't have a good day after that while going through processing. I work in a translation office where our main responsibility is to translate official documents, such as work certificates, academic degrees, and medical papers, for international use. Our service is rigorously monitored and controlled by the judiciary, and direct court certification is a prerequisite for our operation. Additionally, some countries require our translations to be doubly certified by both the local court and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Although the work is generally routine, it involves adhering to numerous strict guidelines, including the types of documents eligible for official translation and precise fee regulation. My boss, who is known for his kindness, often goes out of his way to assist our clients. He sometimes even declined payment from those unable to afford it, although this still incurs a tax liability since it's recorded as income in our system. Recently, an incident occurred that I feel is worth sharing. Last week, a client whom we'll refer to as Mr. X brought in several documents for translation. These included work certificates, his academic diploma, and a transcript of his grades, among others. He delivered these in 2 separate batches. By the time the second batch arrived, we had already completed the translation and double certification of the first batch, which included his grade transcripts by both the court and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Initially, Mr. X was reluctant to hand over his diploma, claiming his mother had hidden it to prevent him from going abroad. We found this unusual but not unheard of. We explained to Mr. X that we could not translate copies and needed to see the original document as required by both the court and the ministry. He eventually retrieved and presented the diploma a few days later. I was in charge of his translations, and upon handling his diploma, I immediately sensed something was amiss. The document was unusually heavy, prompting me to check several times to ensure it wasn't multiple documents stuck together. A detailed examination revealed that a postage stamp on the back was not authentic, but rather a photocopy. This discovery led me to suspect forgery. I called my boss to examine the document. Although the diploma had standard anti-forgery features like holograms, UV light-sensitive prints, and seals, the counterfeit stamp and the overall appearance of the photocopy raised doubts. I suggested contacting the police, but my boss, even the Good Samaritan, hesitated to take such a drastic step, as he wasn't entirely convinced of the forgery, only about 90 certain. Instead, he discreetly sent someone to the court to seek their opinion without leaving the document as evidence. The court's representative advised us within the hour that we should indeed treat the document as a forgery. Upon hearing the court's advice, my boss decided to return the counterfeit diploma to Mr. X and send him away under one condition. Mr. X had to return the translation we had issued for his grade transcripts. Since these transcripts pertained to the same course as the diploma, they were likely falsified as well. My boss even offered to refund Mr. X's payment, asking only that he retrieve the translation, gather his belongings, and leave. In my opinion, this was a rather lenient approach, but it was my boss's decision to make. The very next day, we received a call from the local court inquiring why we had not sent Mr. X's document for certification. It turned out that Mr. X had filed a complaint against us, accusing us of refusing to complete his translation. Aggravated by this development, my boss did exactly what Mr. X had requested. He sent the forged diploma to the court. Unsurprisingly, the court officials immediately recognized the diploma as a forgery. They seized the document, initiated an investigation against Mr. X, and he soon found himself implicated in multiple crimes, some carrying serious jail sentences. The court also requested the serial numbers of all documents we had ever translated for Mr. X, including identification documents and work certificates. They planned to inform all embassies about the potential forgeries, likely resulting in Mr. X being blacklisted in numerous countries. Initially, my boss hesitated, claiming he didn't have all the serial numbers readily available. However, when Mr. X and his father visited our office on Monday, issuing veiled threats, my boss promptly submitted all the serial numbers to the court the following workday. Consequently, we were not required to refund Mr. X's payment. Reflecting on the situation, it's clear that if Mr. X had complied with our requests, he would not have faced such severe legal repercussions, and he would have even received a full refund. Personally, I would have opted to call the police, but I must admit the way events unfolded was undeniably more intriguing. Today I was shopping for my family at the Midwest's best grocery chain M, something that I dislike on Sundays as it is a madhouse, and therefore I usually order my groceries if I procrastinate until Sunday. But I needed a little break from my amazing family after so much togetherness over the last few days. We buried my dear mother-in-law Friday after an aneurysm that shocked us all. Like I said, I needed a break even though I am on chemo and took it yesterday. I do Saturday so I don't miss work and so my students don't see their teacher looking deathly ill. I digress. Back to the story. As I mentioned earlier, I dislike shopping on Sundays, but here I was ready to tackle the crowds with my own mission. Stare, and one headphone and listening to a book, the other dangling out so people could not only see I was listening to something and therefore not approach me, but also know that I could hear them if I was in the way or something. The Big Red M has produced in the front of the store, and their employees wear blue-collared shirts with khakis or black pants, or a blue apron with khakis or black pants and always closed-toed shoes. Oh, and a visor or ball cap. Today I'm sporting a navy shirt with red, purple, and light blue flowers, jeans rolled up to just above my ankles, platform sandals, and my pink sunglasses on top of my head. I look nothing like their wonderful employees, and since I'm pushing a blue shopping cart and looking at produce, minding my own business when Karen first makes her appearance. Karen clears her throat. I move to the side, assuming she also wants to look at the blackberries in sale 5 for $5. My book is getting interesting, so I don't pay her much mind. Karen, and then clears her throat again. Excuse me. Me. I am sorry. I'm almost done. Midwestern manners kick in and I hurry up. Karen, exasperated. I said, excuse me. Me. Sorry? I'm sure I looked as thoroughly confused as I was at this point since I had only taken a quick moment to get my 5 pints. Are you done yet? Mind you, I'm walking away with my card at this point, so yeah, I'm done, Dunny. All yours. They all look good. It's a good price, huh? Yeah, but I want the ones you got since it looks like you got the best ones. Me. I think they all look good. Sorry. I turn to leave and go to the bananas. Well, that was rude, she says loudly and at no one in particular. I keep shopping, laughing at how I've just encountered a Karen of sorts, but thankfully made it out unscathed, or so I thought. Next up is the bakery department. I'm picking up some sweets for my boys. 4-6. And my husband for breakfast, since my husband is on bereavement and will be taking the boy into school, leaving me to get some grading done before my students get to my school. Karen re-entered the picture just as I picked up a 40% off package of donuts. Score. I was going to get those. Mind you, I had them in my cart before she was in the area. Me, okay? Well, that stinks. I think, oh, here we go again. Karen, it's not fair. You are taking all of the good stuff for yourself. Me. Well, I guess get ahead of me then. Karen, no. You need to share with the other customers. Me. I believe store has a first come, first served policy, but whatever. Karen, customers should not have to wait for you to get their stuff. Me. Still not realizing that she thinks I work here. Whatever, hun. I don't have to cater to you. I walk away with my donuts. I said, I wanted those. I am ignoring her and walking away. Karen was not at all happy about this. Give me those cookies. Me. They're donuts. And no, you can't just take what you want. Give them. Me. Still walking away. I got them first, and it looks like I can and did. Big grin on my face. I went up and down the frozen aisle quickly as all I was getting was popsicles from my boys. I'm in the fish department, which also hosts bacon for some reason, when Karen makes her way to me again. She says to some innocent older lady, "Don't you hate when entitled brat employees take things and hide them for themselves?" The lady nervously smiles at her as she continues. They think they are special, and they ignore the paying customers. I actually laugh hard at her nonsense and respond as the lady and Karen are blocking my path. I always assume that they're not working on break or something. I've not worked retail in many years, but I think everyone should at some point as it helps one appreciate how difficult it can be. The innocent lady smiles at me and says, "You are so right." This enraged Karen, but she's yet to go off, so I keep shopping. I'm looking at the wine selection, trying to figure out if I want to get another bottle or actually drink what I have at home when again Psycho Karen approaches. I naively thought maybe she heard me when I said I don't work in retail. Nope. Karen, I suppose you're going to get some wine too? Me. Nope. I am going to drink what I have at home, but this is good if you're wanting a decent bottle. Karen. I laugh. What? An employee who uses their discount gets some cheap wine. You are sad. Me. Actually, you, my dear, are the sad one, and I don't work here. So please leave me alone. I'm done with your entitled behavior. Karen rips my headphone out of my ear. It's a cheap pair, but still. How rude. Take those out. Excuse me? Do not touch me again, lady. I've had about enough of you and your sad alcoholism. That's funny. I've had about enough of you and your abusive behavior. And for the record, I drink about once every few days. A glass at most to unwind from my not here position. I know that I worded this poorly. Do not lie to me. I know you work here. Me. No, but I shop here regularly, so maybe you've seen me here. I've never worked for M. I know for a fact that no employee looks remotely like me. Yes, you do. You're wearing their colors even. So, because I'm wearing a different blue with red flowers, I work here? You work here? I laugh hysterically at my Karen in the wild catch. Yeah, okay, lady. Karen, wait here. I'm getting your manager, and he'll be sorry. Oh, and she reaches into my cart and takes my donuts. I laugh and take them back. Karen, red in the face. Management, manager. I walk away, and surprisingly, 2 other customers come up to me. Customer 1, what the heck was that lady's problem with you? Me, I don't know. I guess she thinks that I work here and employees must bow down to her. Customer 2, you handled her so well. I would have been frantic. Customer 1, I know you from somewhere. Are you my kid's teacher? Me, I am a teacher. Who is your kiddo? Customer 1, kids name me. Laughing. Yep. How's this project going? We chat and then go back to shopping because we hear Karen still hollering about needing a manager, and none of us wanted to deal with her brand of crazy. I head to the other, non-grocery side of the Megamart, get what I need, and head to the checkout feeling grateful that I managed to get what I needed without further incident. Or so I thought. I'm standing in line, cart full, when I hear the god-awful voice of Karen, "Let me in front of you. I already reported you to your manager, but she said she'll talk to you later. Employees should go after customers, hands on hips, expectantly." Me. I don't know who you talk to, but again, I don't work here. I've waited for 2 other customers to get through the line beforehand, and while I appreciate your cart has less than mine, I don't think I'll offer you anything since you have been insufferably narcissistic and have displayed down. Right disgusting behavior. That's it. The nasty woman hit me. She actually hit me with her cart. I'm getting your manager. You'll be sorry. She took off yelling again as I began to unload my cart. I'm pale in the face because today is the day after my chemotherapy treatment. and I'm so not happy with this lady and her nasty attitude. Normally, I would have let someone with a few small items go ahead of me, but not today, as I just want to get home and get to bed. I'm lucky enough my chemotherapy doesn't render me bedridden like it does many people, but I don't exactly feel great. The kind employee notices my sheet white appearance and asks me if I need assistance, and said that they'd already called the manager after the incident with the lady. And normally I would say no thank you, but I take him up on his offer and sit in the blue benches in front of his lane while he and another employee unload and reload my cart. They even put in my perks code for me. This store really is the best. The manager comes up as I'm getting up to pay. Karen in tow. Manager, is this the lady you're talking about? Yes. She's still here. Now take care of her. She was so rude and she took all of the good things. I bet she steals too. Manager, perplexed. She isn't an employee. She shops here often, ma'am, so maybe you've seen her. You're telling me she doesn't work here? How? Oh. I do not understand why you are covering for her. She stole from my cart. Customer 1, who I think was waiting around for Karen, is in line and says loudly, you stole from her cart. She just took it back. Karen, well, employees should not get the discounted things. Manager, ma'am, employees are allowed to buy whatever they please. And again, I'm sorry, she doesn't work here. Karen, she's a thief. Me, please just let me be. I'm feeling quite ill. But if you need to look at a video or something, I'll wait. But can you please put up my frozen popsicles? Employee who saw her hit me. Manager, I think you should look at the video in my lane too. Karen, I did nothing wrong. Manager, no one said you did. She raises an eyebrow. Some other employee came out, I think he was store security. He says, see, manager, I think you'll find the lady in pink was repeatedly harassing the lady in blue and even hit her. Turns to me. We can produce video if you want to press charges. Me, I just want to get home. I think I'm going to be sick. Call the cops. They'll see she's a thief. I'm so over you, lady. I will gladly wait for police to arrive, and I'll press charges as you have harassed me repeatedly, attempted to damage my headphones, and hit me. I have never stolen anything in my life, except a piece of candy when I was 5, and I felt so guilty about it that I went back and tattled on myself and paid for it. Manager, let's calm down. Karen, liar. You stole my donuts. Me, very calmly and sweet as can be. No, I merely took back my donuts that you took out of my cart. Employee, let's review the tapes. Me, gladly. But can I please sit? I'm really not feeling well. Karen, faker. They called the police and the police officer reviewed the tapes as Karen sat there smugly with a poop-eating grin expecting vindication. Police officer asks for our statements. Karen jumps in first. I'm visibly sick at this point, and the officer asks me if I'm okay. I tell him I'm in chemotherapy and I don't feel good. This seems to anger Karen, who begins yelling at me as it is now my turn to speak. The officer asks her to shut up. She doesn't. So he handcuffed her and said she was going to be charged with disrupting the peace regardless of whether I wanted to press charges against her for harassment and repeated assault amongst other things. She went more pale than me, which is saying something. The manager gave me a gift card for my troubles and said with a wink in her eye if I ever wanted a job, I could have one. I did press charges, which I would have dropped, but since she made me throw up in public, I wanted her to be humiliated too. I plan on using my gift card for some classroom items, tissues and hand sanitizer, and food for my homeless students. I told the manager I didn't need the gift card, but she insisted. And when I told her what I'm using it for, the $20 became $100. My students are going to have food for the weekends for several weeks. Thank you, Karen and M. the Thrifty Acres. It all started earlier last week. I just went to bed at 10 o'clock and I had fallen into a peaceful sleep, only to be awoken at about 11:45 by the sound of a car with one of those loud fart mufflers, flooring it down my street. All right, okay, I can handle it on occasion. Maybe it's just the kids a few streets over messing around with their tuners or some moron on a crotch rocket motorcycle. Fast forward to the next night. I go to bed after studying hard for a chemistry test tomorrow. All of a sudden, a loud car sound. There goes the same car again, this time past midnight, at around 12:30. This time I was kind of irritated because it startled me. The next morning, my dad asked me if I heard the car, to which I reply yes. He tells me that he was walking by the window when he heard the motor, so he peered outside and saw a car with squarish head and tail lights floor it down our street. I asked several of my best friends in the neighborhood if they heard it, and sure enough they did, including my friend that lives 2 streets over. The next day, I'm playing with my cat in the living room after dinner, and I hear the same muffler, this time driving slowly down my street. I opened the blinds and caught a glimpse of a black BMW M3, driving up a driveway of a house at the end of my street. This house in particular has a lot of college parties because sometimes I can see drunk and high people stumbling around through the big glass windows, sometimes naked. Surprise, surprise. Later that evening, before it got dark, I drove past the house and wrote down the license plate number, make, and model of the car. Sure enough, later that night, our good old friend Speedy Gonzalez comes drag racing down my street. This time I parked my car down on the street and filmed him flooring his BMW down my street. At this point, I'm done. Your 3 strikes are up, buddy. This means war. One day passes without sight nor sound of the BMW. By this time it's Friday, the day when that house commonly has parties. Now, for the revenge part of the story, little does this guy know my ex-girlfriend's dad is a cop. Since I dated his daughter, we got to know each other fairly well. Anyways, after dinner, sure enough, Mr. Speed Demon comes rolling up to the house, followed by truckloads of other scummy-looking college students. I text my ex asking for her dad's number. I give him a call and explain the situation. He told me to send him a text with the video, plate number, make, model, and the address of the party house, along with the time range, Mr. Too Fast, Too Furious leaves so he can email it directly to the dispatch officer. Later that night, he replies that a unit is set up at the end of my street waiting for doctor. Leadfoot to come rocketing down my street, and sure enough, it happens. This time at about 1, I went back to sleep, hoping cop caught him. In the morning, after sleeping in, I check my texts, and sure enough, my ex's dad pulls through. It ends up they caught him speeding, intoxicated, in possession of marijuana, disturbing the peace, and with illegal modifications on his car. No muffler. Lastly, I heard he is now paying some hefty tickets and fines and spending a bit of time in jail with his nice car impounded for a DUI. My neighbor Bob is a nice enough guy to your face. Self-proclaimed morally upstanding religious man. Occasional petition to make some changes to state government to his worldview, and all around chatty when I have the infrequent pleasure to bump into him. Except he's a dingus and does petty crap all the time. I don't think he's aware that I know he does. While some are aggravating, most are perplexing and barely illegal and wouldn't be worth my effort to get the law involved. These are his stories. Once spent all day Saturday loading leaves onto a flatbed trailer. Now Bob has a lot of property. Where does he put the leaves? He pulls out of his driveway, just gets past the corner of my front yard. Note I have more property where the grass ends, and hits the gas. Leaves blow off to both sides of the road. He turns around at the corner and pulls back into his driveway. Once had an apprentice surveyor come and practice surveying skills to mark the line. Said because he wasn't official, it wasn't, but it was 99% correct on it. Bob goes out one day and moves the mark off his driveway. I took pictures of the locations and made a note. Planted popple trees, fast growing, just on my side of the line fence so they'd provide coverage for his pine trees to grow. I was annoyed, but figured if they gave me quicker coverage from him, I'd just deal with it. They have since gotten huge and some are dying off. I saw Bob outside once and asked him about the limbs falling, and he said they were on my side, so not much he can do. Every time I picked up limbs, I just tossed back to his yard, and they'd eventually disappear to his burn pile, which you guess is sitting at the corner of our property together. Bob had a delivery of a huge piece of equipment. Because his driveway is small and not really usable for the long bed delivery truck, he told the delivery guy to just park and unload in my wide driveway, making big ruts because of the weight of the machinery. To the delivery driver's credit, he didn't know any better. He said the neighbor said it was fine, he used my driveway, would get block permits to kill deer on his property, then dump the corpses deep in the woods just this side of my property. He knows where the line is. One time I heard a bunch of noise early one morning. Bob's 12-year-old son at the time has a tractor with a piece of equipment backed up to my garbage bag pile by the road, trash coming in a few hours, and there's a bag hanging off the edge of the equipment. Son is jamming the raised lower lever to try and shake the bag loose. I called out and asked what he was doing and went out to see. Bob's son froze, and I asked him what it was. He wouldn't say. I opened the bag to find a deer head with maggots on it. Bob didn't want this in his trash, and it's illegal, so decided to just put it in mine. I told Bob Jr. to tell his dad if he did this again, he'd find it in his swimming pool and make his son take it back home. Bob never said anything about it. This is all I can think of at the top of my head, but I think you get his quasi-innocent, if not extremely annoying things he does. Pretty some would say, so fast forward 20-something years of this, and I strike a deal to let Farmer John put up some grain bins at my house, which happened to be the farthest point from my house and next to Bob's property, at the corner where his house is at. These have huge fans. When they're doing the construction, John mentions they would rather point them west, towards Bob's house, and not north because it would be more convenient to them as the fans protrude out a bit from the bins, but didn't want to sour my relationship with Bob. I assure him Bob and I have a special relationship, and I insist he points them to the west because Bob wouldn't care. Fast forward months, and John actually uses grain bins, which he typically runs the fans at night when it's cool. The first morning after Bob knocks on my door and says he heard the fans last night and said he didn't realize they would be pointing towards his property, his house, and where his bedroom faces. I said I didn't really think about it and just told them to put them where it would work best for them. Bob asked if they could be moved, and I said not without a crane rental, a team of men, and several days' worth of labor. I offered to get him a quote. Bob just mumbled, "That's okay," and left. Every time the fans ran after that, it was the peaceful, gentle white noise in the distance to lull me right to sleep. Bonus. When Bob saw all the dirt and construction going on and asked what was being built, I said Farmer John was putting up a 1,000-head pig shed. He just said, "Oh, okay." The next day, my township supervisor called to ask me about zoning issues and said he had a permit for bins, not a shed. This story is about an old friend of mine. We're going to call her Alex. A little backstory so things make sense. My husband and I both have decent jobs that we've been working at for a few years. At this time, we both drove nicer cars and lived in a big but not necessarily updated home. Our cars weren't the most fancy, a 2014 Mustang and used Cadillac, but Alex lives with her mom and some of her children and hustles for a living. Alex has no vehicle. She seized up her engine, skipping oil changes to buy Bud. So ours were nice to her. Alex was a little jealous and used to constantly make comments about how it was so unfair that we had so much compared to her. But, like mentioned, we work hard for our things. Fast forward to tax time. She's expecting a decent amount since she's got 2 children in her custody. Even though she has no job, she plans on using the money as a down payment on a slightly used Chevy car. Since she has no income, she expects her mom to take a loan out in her name instead of Alex's. She said her mom shouldn't be worried because it'll be her motivation to work. Her mom doesn't agree, but keeps that from Alex. Since A is living with her mom, with no job, her mom claims her and her children as her dependents on taxes and receives the money. Alex isn't mad yet, though, because her mom did agree to get her a car, and she assumed she could manipulate her mom into the one she wanted. She was horribly wrong. Her mom told her a $22,000 car was too expensive for someone with no income, and used a majority of the taxes to buy Alex a very nice used Nissan. This car had more options than my Cadillac, so I didn't see how she could be mad. It was a nice car. She was furious that she had to drive a piece of crap car and that she couldn't flex on her friends. She was so mad she pushed her 67-year-old mother who was holding her 1-year-old child. Her aunt saw this attack and called the cops. Alex called me to pick her up, and I did since she obviously didn't tell me the entire story. Once she did, I promptly took her home and luckily beat the police since I didn't know the severity of charges she could face. I left since I wasn't a witness. I wanted no part in that. No charges ended up being given, but I kind of wished there had been. But wow, assaulting your own mother while holding your small child over a free car. One of the many reasons why we aren't friends. A few years back, I was going to school at a local community college, and my living situation was completely destroyed from the death of a relative, so I was pretty much forced to move into the dorms. Not a big deal. I actually looked forward to it a bit. The emergency nature of the move was such that I was perhaps the last person to apply and be assigned, so I got the crap dorms. Not crappy because of the facilities. They were identical, but I got saddled with the people who got in last because they were irresponsible. For 2 years, I had the most obnoxious roommates in existence. All of them were in the basketball team, and that was their reason for existence. No courtesy, no class, no responsibility. Every day was some new exercise and jackassery that boggles the mind. Loudness at all hours. I distinctly remember coming back to the door open and a large subwoofer playing gangsta rap at full volume outside to our volleyball court. They did this in the morning and left it that way, for 6 hours with the door open for people to just yoink our crap. Lack of respect for objects and property. I had a DVD player in the living room that was taken into one roommate's room for a month. I eventually got it back. Then later that year, they got into a stupid argument, and one of them punched a hole in the wall to make a point. It took a lot of luck and sweet talk to have that taken off of my bill for the month. Blatantly violating dorm rules. They were constantly using shit pot, poorly hidden and smelling like tire, dirt, and barely hiding it. Several times a week, they'd have 10 people over. At one point, they even tried moving people in secretly for a while. This one guy's girlfriend lived with us for 2 months before she got tired of him treating her like shit and left him. Highlight of my time there, actually fun to talk to and liked, I was, okay with her. Anyway, each of these things was not only terminally stupid, but risked getting us evicted. It was miraculous that we didn't, and I would have been screwed should that have happened. So you get the kind of people I lived with. But the thing was, I was still nice. Too nice. I offered them any food I got for myself. I tried to hang out with them and talk. Was nice to their relatives. Largely never complained to them. The DVD player, I think, was the only time I conveyed anger, as that was outright theft. I really tried my best here, but by about halfway through, I just sort of gave up and just shut myself in my room. There was nowhere else to transfer to, and I in general was too nice to attempt it. We just avoided each other. Fast forward to the last day I was there. I had been gathering my things for the past week and boxing bagging them. That day I had moved the furniture out of the way and just started putting everything in the living room area. My roommates had already done mostly the same. Their stuff in black plastic bags, so I tried not to get my stuff mixed in theirs. They were gone the entire time, which was wonderful. Probably off partying. I had been worried about stuff in the fridge since we were just putting stuff in a pickup truck. My dad had thought of that and had a large cooler for most of it. I was still worried because I had stupidly bought a carton of moose tracks and hadn't even opened it. I didn't know how that was going to survive. We got to that part, and I went to get it out. It was gone. Sure enough, right near the top of the unemptied trash can was the empty carton. As I had said, I was actually very nice to my roommates despite how much I loathed them. I told them routinely that they could have any of my food, just that they should tell me at some point. They never did, which I didn't mind. Anything. Except for my ice cream. It is my joy. I usually had a half-gallon that I whittled away at in the freezer at all times and didn't get much else in terms of snacks. That was to be left alone, and to their credit, they did for almost all of the 2 years I lived there, ignoring it like my food. This was literally my only hard rule. In one night, they decided to consume that entire large carton of moose tracks. This was one of those overly large blue bunny cartons that were more like 3/4 of a gallon too. They decided to do that to me for whatever reason. Staying out of their way entirely and silently? They had to put some serious effort into this, or offered it to whoever the hell they decided to invite over when I was asleep. I was furious, but I tried sour grapes it. It'd melt anyway. Shouldn't have gotten it the last week, etc. We packed the last of my things, turned in my keys, and left. Fast forward a few hours. I was at my dad's house, and we were storing some of the stuff there. I actually had a lot of stuff besides standard dorm stuff. We had been emptying the house I lived out of before it was foreclosed on. Some of that was in my closet. Some of my stuff we decided we were going to store at his place temporarily. I'm putting stuff in his garage, and he calls me over. "Is this your stuff?" "It doesn't look like your stuff." They had grabbed a large amount of my roommate's bags by mistake. Overall, I'd say there was about 6 or 7 bags of clothes, a mixture of all my roommates. I had accidentally loaded up at least half of all of their clothes, if not all of them. Nothing else of particular value was there, but they'd probably only have the clothes on their backs. Well, what do you want to do with them? I started from my wallet. When you got assigned a room, the office pulls up the records and gives you a little card with the home cell numbers of all of the people you were moving in with to coordinate. I had kept mine over those 2 years. My first thought was to call them all and arrange some way for them to pick up their clothes. They were all from my city, so it wouldn't have been too hard. But then I remembered the ice cream. A cruel little voice in my head boiling over with malice, laughed maniacally in my head and belched out a resounding no. I put my wallet back. "You can throw them in the dumpster, Dad." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure." When I got home, I threw away that little card. I never got a phone call, meaning they had done the same ages ago, or lost it. It was delicious. The revenge, not the ice cream,